Today is October 19th, 2020, and you're listening to episode 38 of Manchild and the Old Guy. He's the man-child, a bearded 20-something, and I'm the old guy, a cynical Gen Xer. This is your intergenerational podcast where we discuss pop culture, faith, politics, and whatever we find interesting. No longer broadcasting from the basement, but still with mom's permission. I'm the old guy.
And I'm the man-child.
Welcome to our stream of consciousness.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah. So
Turner, stop chewing on the carpet. Turner. Dumb dog.
It used to be me with the pet problems, but now it's you.
Yeah, I got 2 dogs now.
You got the 14-year-old Shih Tzu and then the puppy Turner that's like 6 months old.
No, he's 13 weeks, 12 weeks.
He's still new.
He's fresh puppy.
What's the new dog smell?
I don't like how that smells. Honestly, I don't like the smell of babies. I don't like the smell of puppies. I like the smell of a dog.
So what's usually we start out with you having a gas pain or what?
I just had a cramp in like my lower left rib.
Oh.
I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, that's called.
I'm getting old. I know, right?
Pretty soon you'll be the old guy and I'll be the super old guy. So what, you have a rant for us today, or you just?
Oh man, okay. So here's a dilemma I'm having with some of my buddies. And I was talking to you this a little bit about in the pre-show. So I am a huge Xbox guy. I mean, I am such a huge Xbox guy. I was even ready for this. I have an Xbox t-shirt on right now. I have an Xbox t-shirt on right now. That's how big of an Xbox fan I am. I think it's awesome as a gaming console. I think it has the best controller, the best UI. It works with other devices incredibly well. And you know what? It is a great entertainment center. It just works. All the apps, Netflix, YouTube, all of those work really well. It connects to the Google Home. So if you want to ask it to turn off the Xbox, to pause something, to resume something, you can do that. You pay $10 a month. You can play with anyone around the world at any time. You get discounts on some newer games, all this kind of stuff. And there's some newer features that are coming out too, even with the new consoles. I have the Xbox One S, just a basic model. I got it because I graduated college. Thank you, wife. Thank you, girl child. But all my friends that work at Best Buy all use a gaming PC, right? They all use a gaming PC. And they're like, it's superior. You have more frame rates. It doesn't get outdated. So you have all these people talking about this. Sometimes they do. And I get it. Right? I get it. The computer is a computer. But when I play Xbox, I don't want a computer at my fingertips. I want a game console that is engineered in every single way to be a game console.
If they're using the gaming PC, are they using a keyboard or are they using
keyboard and mouse? Keyboard and mouse. Some of them use.
They have a controller.
Yeah, most of them use, because with Windows you can use the Xbox controller as for it. Most of them use keyboard and mouse, but for my Xbox, if I wanted to, I can use the keyboard and mouse. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, so when I play online with them, with my Xbox, mainly in like Call of Duty, they're like, oh, I'm dropping frames. Oh, my game is glitching. Oh man, my keyboard, blah, 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 blah. But they're talking about it's not going as fast. It's not doing this. It's not doing that. Well, guess what, baby? My Xbox, it may not give me 144 FPS or whatever, dude. I may be only getting 60 or 75. I may not be getting 4K. I'm getting 1440p. But I'll tell you what, I never once have an issue. It is engineered to give you just a steady performance, not the best performance, but a steady one. And that I would rather have reliability over crappy engineering. This is why when you upgrade to business internet, it's not like a gigabit internet. It's like 10 megabits, but up and down, it always stays that. It doesn't fluctuate from 30 to 5 to 2 to 16. It always stays at 10 or whatever it is. So you always have a reliable internet connection. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a great entertainment system, right? I'm not looking for a freaking computer to do all this kind of stuff. Now, I do need a computer to do some better video editing. I do need a computer to do some other stuff. And having a gaming PC wouldn't be that bad either, because Xbox now has what's called Game Pass.
Mhm.
So it's $15 a month, and you can play any Xbox game, and you get like 30 or 40% off all new games, any games. You can play on the new xCloud, which is on any Android device, on your PC or on your Xbox. It streams over the internet. I can download games, play them all that I want.
You play it on
Yeah.
Apple?
You can, but it has to go through a browser, so they're still working the kinks out on that. But anywho's, you can do all this kind of stuff with the Game Pass. So if I had a gaming PC, I could play my favorite Xbox game when I'm not at home, or well, I mean, if I had a gaming laptop, but a desktop, I could be over here and do that, and still play with people on other PCs.
Mhm.
Great service, all this kind of stuff. Those are reasons I would get it. I would not get it just because PC gaming is superior to Xbox or PlayStation. What people don't understand is that when you're using a console system, most people aren't looking for this expandability, for all this crazy stuff. They're looking for a reliable, enjoyable entertainment center, a media center. If that is what you're using it for, the Xbox and PlayStation, but I prefer Xbox, is a fantastic thing. It is beautiful, just works so well. And that's all it is. But everyone's like, these console wars. Yeah, I think Xbox is better than PlayStation. I think PlayStation sucks.
Well, Xbox is basically a computer, right?
Yes, but it is impossible to run Windows on it.
You
I mean,
know all the hard drives you stick it in and everything, you can't make one so the ROM in it won't, or the BIOS won't start up a Windows.
So between the CPU, where you plug in external hard drives, between everything, there's a chip. I can't remember the name of the chip. It's a proprietary chip made by Microsoft. That means that the processor cannot understand anything that is another operating system outside of the Xbox operating
Yeah,
system.
that's the BIOS, the basic input operate. That BIOS stands for basic input operating system.
Right, but
If the BIOS won't load the kernel for Microsoft Windows, it's not going to run.
right, but what it is that it specifically blocks things going to the CPU, things going out, everything. It controls everything, and it knows if this thing is proprietary or not. So if it is acceptable work with Xbox, it'll go through. It's not just like a BIOS; it's an actual chip that gets updates to understand people that try and work their way in to use it as a like PC, because the Xbox is not a PC, though it technically has the specs that you could use, especially the newer ones.
It's running like an i5 processor, isn't it?
I don't not no, yes, kind of.
Well, it has
Um,
multiple because it has the software processor, but then it also has a graphics chip.
yeah, they're weird the way they're set up, because they have just a different sort of processor. The newer Xboxes use the AMD's platform for graphics cards and things like that. But yeah, anyways, yeah, you just can't use it as a PC, although basically it is a PC, but it's a very locked down thing. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a PC for all this stuff.
Are these people who are playing with the PCs? Do they have like the $5,000 gaming PCs? Or are they trying to take like a normal PC and make it a gamer?
Here's the misnomer people have, is that people think you can make a just basic PC into a gaming PC. You can't.
Right.
And then people that pay for the $5,000 gaming PCs are numbnuts, because you can make a gaming PC for like $700, like a pretty good one, not like a fantastic one, but a pretty good one for like $700, $5,000. That thing would be so overpowered.
Yeah, well, there's those ones where you have like 8 hot swap spots for hard drives in it, and
Yeah,
total
those.
Alienware mega system.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pay $5,000, Alienware is a good way to go, because here's funny. If you ever go to Best Buy, you'll see what's called the Alienware Aurora. It looks like a big turbine from the front. It's got light, like it looks really cool. If you flip it around the back, you see the edges of the plastic casing, and then you just see the flat metal part of a back of just a rectangle Dell desktop. It's just the rectangle Dell desktop, except they put this huge plastic casing around.
So they didn't even put the insides on steroids or anything?
No, I mean they are, but it's just for $3,000.
Yeah. Well, for some LEDs that cost, a penny a piece.
Oh, LEDs are cheap, dude.
So you heard it here first, folks, that Manchild is against gaming PCs.
I'm not against gaming PCs. I just think the debate that gaming PCs is better than a console is dumb because people are looking for different things out of it. So if you were looking for the best possible performance and be able to play anything and all this kind of stuff, yeah, gaming PC is the way to go. If you're looking for a casual gaming experience to have fun, enjoy yourself, just do whatever. It's always reliable.
And network with a bunch of people to play the same game, maybe.
Yeah, and you want it as a media center, then the Xbox is the perfect way to go. And I guess that works for PlayStation as well.
Now, like for the Switch and the PlayStation, like there's a portable, excuse me, there's a portable component. Does Xbox have that now? Like if you were playing Call of Duty on your Xbox and you push pause, and then you loaded up the app that you're talking about on the Android, can you pick up the game where you left off?
Like not yet. So PlayStation doesn't have that. They got rid of their mobile gaming platform.
Well, that's how much I'm on top of it.
Yeah, so they had the PS Vita, which was after the PSP. McDonald had the PSP. They got rid of that platform. Although they just ended support for it in 2018, even though they stopped making them in like 2014. The Nintendo Switch is purely mobile. I mean, you have two versions of the Switch. There's the Lite, which is just a one piece of plastic. It's smaller, but it's just there. You can't connect it to anything else. All your games saved on there are just on that device. The normal Switch with the Joy-Cons that come off, you can put that on a dock and put it on your TV and put the controllers together for a little thing and have a whole bunch of people in play. But even with that, it's only on that device. Xbox, though, is doing the xCloud gaming, which is where I'll be able to I would have to be streaming the game from online on my Xbox, press pause, and then I could flip out my Microsoft Surface Duo, right? So the phone.
Long as you were streaming it from online.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to, like, the game I have downloaded, like let's say Call of Duty, let's say like the Call of Duty Black Ops from 2012. That's an old disc kind of game. If I had that playing on here, I wouldn't then be able to pick up where I was mobile. But if I was playing online, like multiplayer, and I turned off the Xbox, picked this up, my same account, everything is right there. But it wouldn't be playing on the hardware. All it basically is doing is responding to what's going on the cloud, which is only really going to be feasible with if you're on good Wi-Fi or when 5G becomes readily available.
To turn on the nanobots in our bloodstreams.
Yeah, something like that. Or just to be able to actually
I think that's the way everything's going, to stream it all and then have everybody pay for a monthly subscription rather than you having physical discs. Although they do make a lot of money on those little discs they sell at the consoles. But yeah,
and there's benefits to both. So, it's dumb to some aspect because if I just want to have a digital or like an actual copy of the game to load in my Xbox so I don't have to do updates, then that's fine. But the problem is that as soon as your Xbox is connected to the internet, you always have to do an update. I mean, half the time when you buy a new game, you plug it in, you have to download basically the game. Mm-hmm. And the disc is just like the start menu to get it started. So just to have the digital copies makes more sense. I prefer having the discs, but I'm getting past that point now. It's still really hard because we come from a very analog family where we like to actually have the device, the disc, and we have a giant movie online catalog. We have all this kind of stuff set up. So I'm watching the dogs fight each other right now. And like the newest, they have two new Xboxes, the Series S and Series X. The Series S is $299. The Series X is like $499. Differences: the Series X is a freaking beast of a machine. It outputs 4K at like 144 hertz, which is really a TV only does 60 hertz. So it's a very smooth experience. They have ray tracing, which means that light looks extremely.
You can't see past 60 hertz. So
No.
what's the reason to overclock that?
No. So the thing is, so we can't in real life perceive anything really past 60 because of motion blur. We can see on a screen when something is past that. So 240 is about, you can look, I don't even look at me like that, dude. I work in this stupid stuff.
I understand, but fluorescent lights are switching at 60 times a second and we don't notice the flicker. So how are we going to notice?
You don't know, stop. You don't notice the flicker until something moves. So when you move your mouse across the screen on a 60 hertz screen versus a 75 versus a 144 and a 244, there is a massive difference because you can see the mouse kind of move across the screen, skip-de-doo-dah. On a, like, let's say a 144 screen, the mouse doesn't have a little skippy motion. There is no motion blur to it. It just is a solid thing moving. So on the screen, we don't notice motion blur. In real life, if that happened, we can't perceive it because we have to perceive motion blur. On a screen, we can perceive what things would look like at that in real life, but it's 144. So we can perceive that because it's not in real life. If something is real life and happened like that.
I just looked it up while you're talking. 4K, 4K either runs at 30 frames per second or 60. It doesn't run at some 140.
Yes, it does. It can run.
I can play 4K at 15 frames, but not 720. Even at who would run 100 frames? You just can't even see that.
But you're not understanding. It's not about the resolution. So like 4K, 1440p, whatever, is just the clarity of it. So when it comes to not like, so that's the thing you have to understand. It's not looking at movies. Movies is a totally different thing. When you're looking at digitally like CGI stuff, 4K just means very high end, detailed things. And when you're looking like at an actual like movie, so let's say like we're watching Avengers. If you bump that up to 8K, 5K, whatever, all that kind of stuff, at a certain, we can't perceive anything. Colors look a little different. Things might look a little sharper, but we can't notice all those differences. The differences you get is the closer you get to the TV, the less pixels you see. That's the big difference. But when you're doing gaming, the 4K resolution isn't so much talking about like this looks more real than real life. It's what it's doing is because naturally, like a Call of Duty does not look like real life. The higher the resolution, the closer it does look to real life. So gaming compared to like actual cinema requires way higher resolution to look more real, just like the frame rates. So if you play original Call of Duty, like Call of Duty 1 or something like Modern Warfare itself from like 15 years ago, it's running at 30 frames a second, which is pretty close to what we see. But this is what it looks like. But once you get up to 144, at the least, it starts running more like this. It looks so much more real. And it's because the way the systems are set up and the way we perceive it and the screens is that augmented stuff, so fake CGI computer animated things, are so low compared to actual life. So yes, in real life, when you're watching a movie, if you bump things up to 144, it doesn't look natural. And then if you make things 8K, it doesn't look natural. That's why I didn't like the Hobbit movies, because they shot it in 120 at like 5K. I don't like that because things look too sharp, colors were too weird, and everyone moved with this smoothness that doesn't exist in real life. So it took me out of the movie. But if you had an animated movie that was running at 60 frames a second, which most animated movies are at 30 frames a second, if you bumped it to 60, it's so much smoother. So what I would encourage you to do is go on YouTube and look up classic Disney movies in 60 frames a second. And you'll notice it'll play a clip of Mulan where someone's running. And originally when we were watching it, we don't think anything too weird. And then you see it in 60 frames and you're like, whoa, that's buttery smooth.
Buttery smooth.
I mean, it is.
So I just shared a screen with you.
I see it.
I don't even know where I've clicked on. This is high understanding frame rate in video. So this is from last year. But it says the highest frame rate is actually 240, but Gamers use 144. And they do have a picture here, like what you're talking. Here's 60 frames per second, and then here's 120.
Yeah, it's just a matter of there's no true way for us to fully be able to say like what the actual resolution that we see, because again, the resolution I see probably isn't close to what some TVs can put out, but there's other people that can probably see way more detail than I can. Just like I have some vision problems.
Yeah. I'm just
So
saying in general, people can't see past, actually, most people can't see past 48 frames a second.
no, and totally agree with that.
Because
But
like if you've got a fluorescent light, again, it's flashing with the AC current going into it because it's a plasma. It's flashing at 60 frames a second, basically. So if you get something moving at 60 cycles a second, like a bicycle tire or something, it'll look like you're in a strobe. And people don't see it because our retinas have a persistence of vision, which is why old phosphorus TV screens worked, is because of that persistence. So,
yeah, and I'm agreeing with you. All I'm saying is that when it comes to digital media, um, what 60 frames a second in real life is way higher than what 60 hertz is on a screen for what we can perceive. So they're very two different categories. So it's like apples to oranges. Now, 60 frames a second is totally different in movies because that is real life. So we can tell when things look real. That's why classic movies look so good. And then you see movies
these
from the
are real
90s.
life.
Yes, totally real.
Get those dogs settled down.
Yeah. Bella's sleeping. Turner's over there just eyeballing me because he knows I don't like it when he bites at the carpet.
Why does he bite at the carpet?
Oh, he's teething. So he just split my thumb
Oh, you got
last night.
classic puppy teeth.
Yeah, I was playing with just a little chew tones, chew bone, and just kind of moving around, and he just like let go. He's like, and then
Yeah,
and he bit down a little further. Ooh, that went right through my thumb.
that teeth,
Just
those teeth are like razors.
I remember when Bella bit your thumb and sliced it down the center. That was blood all over.
Went to get stitches on that, to be honest.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah. So with that, we want to thank people for listening today. So we're trying something new with the music this week, because last week I had to overdub the beginning, not in the video, but on the actual podcast. So, but we do want to take a moment to acknowledge all our stream of consciousness listeners out there. We're very thankful each of you, and we appreciate all of you for listening and adding value to the podcast as you interact with us on social media and places like that. When you share your stream of consciousness with us, you are helping to produce the show. And if you found value with this podcast, we ask you to please visit anchor.com/MCTOG to support the show and make a donation in the amount of value you've received. Donations help keep us podcasting. And we want to interact with each of you as well. So look for Manchild and the Old Guy Facebook page. Support links can be found through our website, www.bloodpumpmedia.com. You can also cross your stream of consciousness with us by emailing us at bloodpumpmedia@gmail.com or commenting on the Facebook page or on the YouTube channel as we're recording this and we posted it on YouTube. We'd love to hear from any of you. Please send us your suggestions or comments so you can help produce the show. If you like what you hear and you're finding value and entertainment in what we are doing, then by all means, be a producer as a listener by telling others and sharing links and liking and doing all that on social media that you do, like, share, all that kind of stuff, so that we can get as many people listening to the podcast. And, the more people talking and communication, the more we have fun with all this. So occasionally you guys send us notes and we really appreciate that. And we have fun with it. Usually Manchild jumps in on the B block, but he's always depended on me when we were in the basement, putting it up on a screen that nobody could see.
Yep.
So I've got to figure out how to share that with him without sharing it with all of you at the same time. So we'll figure that out. But this is, again, our second.
Give us money.
Our second test run at, doing this kind of stuff. So recording in 2 states at one time, which is a big deal for us since, the first time, well, the very first time we tried it was a train wreck. So, but we're learning as we go along. So, let's see.
If we raise $1,000, we will release that podcast.
Well, that's a good challenge. If we can get $1,000 in donations or 1,000 likes on Facebook, how's that?
1,000 followers. How's that? That's
yeah. Well, let's get into some political talk. So, as you know, I've moved to another state, namely Minnesota.
Minnesota nuts.
Yeah, and there's something funny going on here. If you remember, after the George Floyd incident, the city council of Minneapolis started voting to defund the police. And so there's a gal up here that I watch on YouTube sometimes. She's always kind of freaky to me because she's got one of those circle light things that go around her camera when she records her. So I'll play this video and you can see the video right now.
Yeah.
Like YouTube there. I haven't started playing yet, but just look at her. Even right now, if you look at her eyes, they look spooky because it's that circle like LED ring light is like right around her corneas and just makes her eyes look really spooky. But just give a listen to what she's saying.
Early in the summer, you probably remember when the Minneapolis City Council voted to defund the police. It passed and they defunded the police. Since then, over 100 police officers have either quit or gone on extended leaves of absence. Gee, I wonder why, right? No support. Come on, no one's going to stick around. Well, they have flipped the script, the city council, that is. They recently went to the local police chief saying, "Where are the police? We need them. We don't see them anywhere. Their crime has risen." Let me go over what's risen. Let's see here. Carjackings, robberies, assaults, and shootings. They also are saying, "We never really meant it when we voted to defund the police. It wasn't interpreted properly." Oh yeah? Pretty sure you did what you did because you meant it. Early in the summer.
Oh, that's her playing it. Yeah. So this is kind of a funny little thing here. She gives like a little minute synopsis, but if you're here local, this is exactly what's happening. They're like, "Oh, well, we didn't really mean all that. And we you didn't interpret it properly." And I can tell you in some neighborhoods, crime is skyrocketing and police calls are taking forever because they're not replacing police officers. People are retiring or taking extended leaves of absence and they're not coming back. And they have no plan right now with budgets and stuff to bring people back. So this is really a big problem. And I know other big communities are doing this, but the big side of this is people are talking about, well, we'll send social workers in first to like domestic disputes, which are some of the most violent things that police officers walk into, or to send a social worker in to talk to some guy who's having a problem with drugs or something like that. So that it's a big issue if the police aren't going to be there who are trained to de-escalate and trained to try to keep people safe. And to tell you right now in Minneapolis, it's a problem.
Well, here's what I would say. None of this stuff would happen if you guys just enacted the policy I did, which is oddly enough the same policy that a lot of people have now, which is you don't give preferential hiring to military veterans. You stop giving cops the ability to purchase freaking military stuff. You end SWAT teams. And one of the main things is, guess what? It works better if you have a cop that can do the beat. Have freaking beat cops, dude. The same dude just strolls in the same neighborhoods, same parts of town, same retail, whatever. Maybe they don't have a gun. Probably. You give them a baton. They have the classic police uniform with the collars and everything. They don't look like a freaking paramilitary group walking around. People get familiar with these people. They're friendly. They can walk around, whatever. Those are the people that in an area they dispatch to. They have a number, so they get direct calls. So if someone calls 911, they're the first person they go to. They go there, and they have a walkie, so they can say like, "Hey, we need backup." So you have a cop there in certain areas in that precinct, always just vigilant. Maybe they live there, maybe they don't. There's a 2-shift, whatever. I don't know how that's going to work. But if you have that set up, you're going to have less issues. People are familiar. They know, oh, there's a cop around the neighborhood. We know, Officer Greg over there is going to bust our nuts. But here's the other thing. Having those kind of cops can teach lessons to kids versus just having some dude roll up into I don't know, a Mexican, white, black neighborhood, whatever. Some kid smoking a joint. You have a beat cop that say, hey, Greg, Bill, get that out of your mouth, man. I'm going to take that. They stomp on it, throw it away or whatever. Don't let me catch you doing that again. Normal cop pulls up, boom, 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 starts beating the crap out of the kid, lock him up. And then guess what? You have a felony charge if you're 18 years old. You're still a kid. You're 18 years old. And guess what? You're always going to forever have the stupid jail time sentence because you smoked a joint.
Okay. Well, first, let me just say that in general, cops are not jumping out of the car and just beating people up. There's always,
I'm
know,
just saying. In general,
now,
maybe that's not happening, but it's happening enough.
Well, it's happening in a way that gets recorded, of course. But
dude, if you go on YouTube right now, I support police officers, but if you go on YouTube right now and just look up in the year 2020, cops like jumping a kid because they're skateboarding or because they're smoking a joint, there are hundreds and hundreds of videos, and that's hundreds and hundreds of times that goes too far. No. They're like 20-minute videos of a cop just beating the crap out of a kid. It's not, it's out of context. No one can see it or anything like that. It's just this one video. You see the whole lead up of a cop pulling up and these issues are rising, and then the cop just kind of starts tasing some 16-year-old.
Okay, but all I'm saying is cops don't roll up and jump out and start beating somebody. There's always...
They do. Not all of them. Yeah, not all of them. But there's enough times that happens. Sure. There's enough times you have cops that just go in neighborhoods that they're not a part of. They're not a part of that community. They don't know the kids. So you have this here's the big issue with cops. It's us versus them. That is the mentality that so many police officers have. Whether it's bad or good doesn't matter.
How many police officers do you know?
I know several, especially here in town, that go to the store and they're part of the city council and stuff.
And you think that they have...
Yeah, and some of them even talked about that before.
Here's what, because I've lived in the community where you're living, and here's what, when we had big roundtables, when a whole bunch of like 13 and 14-year-old kids in that community were stealing cars just to drive across town.
I remember that happening. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And we were sitting and listening to some of the stories of the police officers, which is, I'm driving through a neighborhood, a kid is standing in his front yard, sees my car pull by, gives me double middle fingers. This is an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. I stopped just to talk to the kid for a second and say, hey, why are you flipping me off? Before I even talk to the child, his parent comes running out of the house and starts F-bombing me left and right on how I'm a MFer, blah, 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 blah. And so the police officer's like, screw this, just gets in the car and drives off. But they don't even get a chance to do what you're just saying. He's just cruising the neighborhood like he usually does, wants to talk to little Jimmy about why you double flipping me off. And he doesn't even get a chance because he's already lambasted by the parent as he's just going up to talk to a kid and say, hey, it's not right. So what you're saying about a police officer running the beat and all that is probably not going to happen.
No, I'm not saying that we've reenacted that policy right now. I am not saying, and that's taken out of context to say like, well, if we just did it right now, it's going to fix the problems. I'm not saying that. There is no policy. People freaking hated Social Security when it first came out. Republicans said it was too socialist. The Democrats were like, oh, it's a little far left. And then here we are almost 100 years later, and we're just like, oh, well, you know what? That's a crucial part of American life. Okay, whatever. Policies take some time. What I'm saying is, yeah, the cop, I don't care. I don't care about the personal anecdotes about it because that's what it is. There's so many stories of that kind of stuff happening of where a cop does pull out and that escalates so quickly. You don't know what your little kid's going to do. And you don't know what cop that is. You don't know what he's going to do. So the parent comes out. Yeah, it's a perception that needs to change, but I get it from both sides. Why the cop feels like, hey, man, I want to educate you. Like, we're not having an issue. Why you flip me off? And the parent's like, no, not my kid. So I get both sides of that. And I get why some cops feel like they're
But
being attacked, because they are. But there are so many police officers. Just look at the freaking protests, man. Look at those. There's plenty of officers in those crowds of kids of just marching where they're macing a kid just sitting in the street, or they decide to push an old man over, or just start beating someone. Right? There's so many videos of that where they have this versus them mentality, them versus us, where they have this paramilitary thing. They come out of the military and they're ready to freaking still kill somebody. You ever seen the movie Major Payne? Basically a good example of that. Or I'm not saying this is everyone across the board, but there's enough cases of it where it's just nothing's being done. And then you have qualified immunity where officers are getting away with basically murder, and here's a fine or a night in jail and go home, or they just get fired and then they don't get to go to jail.
Look, a lot of times things escalate very quickly for police officers, and they have to make split-second decisions.
I totally agree with that.
And so that's where some of this qualified immunity comes from, is if you've got to make a decision in a split second, but we're going to go back after the fact and prosecute you for that in a moment of tension.
No. Qualified immunity is supposed to be there.
That's
right.
What that's
the way it's
for.
supposed
now,
to.
I will say that the court system doesn't always use it that way.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Qualified immunity is supposed to be used in the sense that if a cop goes in a situation, ends up shooting somebody, they don't just drag him off the jail. He's a free person. And then they investigate the matter to figure out whether or not, like, hey, man, that was not a justified thing. And then you arrest the dude. If you say, like, hey, you shot and killed the guy, but it was justified, you're fine. You're not going to face any charges. Take a couple weeks off. Right, that's qualified immunity, but it's not the freaking walk away. The dude that shot George Floyd, that dude already shot Native American. He shot all his other dudes.
George Floyd,
or whatever, stepped on his neck. Whatever actually happened with that. That dude already had a huge list of issues, and the fact that he was still on the police force. Just like I work at a retail store. If I had one instance of me cussing out a customer and flipping him off, do you think I would still have a job there? No. But if I continually had that on my record of doing that to customers, I would not have a job. If a cop routinely and unjustifiably and is been punished for doing that in a row, they shouldn't be a cop.
Yeah, that happens because there's police unions. So
right.
So do you so are you advocating busting up the police unions?
I'm not for defunding police. I'm not for busting up police unions. I'm for making huge reforms in police. And this is stuff I've called for since this podcast started, man. I don't think we should give military equipment, military training, and SWAT teams to police.
SWAT team's one thing, but militarizing the SWAT team is another thing. So this is part of the Patriot Act, which anybody who knows me, I'm totally against the Patriot Act. It was good for a time, but we should stop renewing it. Every year, the House and the Senate vote on it, and every year the president signs off on it.
Because the deal's too good to let go.
What's that?
The deal's too good to let go, man.
Well, sure, you're sending surplus military equipment to little towns in the Midwest. There's no reason, I have always said this, there's no reason like little towns in Nebraska should have a armored personnel carrier for their police force, but some of them do because there was surplus military equipment and it was given out and they get money to buy that stuff. And that's what happens. So I agree with all that stuff. I simply, there's a bigger story. Watching a YouTube video, I think is condemning somebody before they've had their time in court. And most of those police officers are being held to that standard. Obviously, if you have had a problem with a police officer, you should file a complaint and hold them accountable and let the system work. But in a lot of the situations you're talking about, people have already condemned the people before they've even had a trial. I mean, George Floyd, even in kind of what you're saying, the officers involved with George Floyd, you've already pretty much condemned them without them going through trial. You're just
no. I had no.
Those officers should not have done what they've done, and any of that.
Because this was almost a year ago that this kind of stuff has happened. When that happened, I had no animosity to both sides. I was impartial, and then all this information comes out about both of them. We're still waiting for this crap to freaking roll through.
It wasn't a year ago.
Wife divorces him.
This is just in May. Okay. So
It's getting pretty close it's enough for me. That's getting pretty close to a year
you know
ago.
how to count
It's,
months.
dude, 2020 is the equivalent of like a decade.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yeah,
And but I'm not like, oh well, I condemn them after the fact. No, it's been enough time since I don't know why there hasn't been a date set for court.
no, there
Or
has
maybe there
been.
has.
They're trying to find a location with it because you're supposed to be judged by, if we're talking George Floyd, the
Judged by your peers.
was it Derek Chavez is the officer that the one that had his knee on his back or neck. Um, they're looking for a place to hold the trial where they can get a jury pool that isn't already tainted.
Yeah.
So they're having last I heard, they were going up in the Moorhead, Minnesota area, which is a suburb of Fargo, North Dakota, to actually have the trial to try to get a jury pool that isn't all messed up. So I don't know, but I do just going off there. I think the DA, Keith Ellison, he's overreached by charging that guy with second-degree murder. That might be a very hard thing for them to prove. There's other charges of murder they could probably prosecute them on, but second degree might be a tough one because that is some sort of intent you have to prove. And I don't know.
I mean, I would see it falling under manslaughter, but
yeah, so I don't know if they can prove the intent for Chavez, that he like woke up that morning and wanted to kill somebody kind of thing. That might be tough to prove, but who knows? But that's why we have court systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let's keep we're in the area of politics. So this is just kind of a fun little thing. There's this bakery in, Pennsylvania, I think. Yeah. PA Bakery. They've been baking these cookies for presidential elections for a few races now. So you can see the Biden and the Trump cookies.
You want to share the screen real quick?
Oh, I thought I did. Oh, sorry.
No, you did not.
There you go. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So there you got the Biden and the Trump cookies, and they've been predicting elections on these cookies. So right now, last I read, the Trump cookies are, yep, here it is. As far as 10 a.m. when they did this story a couple days ago, Trump leads 3-1. And so they're predicting Trump's going to win because they're selling more Trump cookies.
I like that. That's fun.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun thing. So speaking of Trump, a new website popped up in the last couple of weeks because
VeryFinePeople.info.
Yeah. So this is, everybody keeps saying that Trump has never denounced white supremacy and all of that kind of stuff. He at the Charlottesville thing where people were tearing down statues and all of that kind of stuff. That he said there's very fine people on both sides. Well, when you listen to the context of it, which I'll play, I went to a certain point and let him talk here for a second. Now, I am not a Trump supporter, but I do understand that everybody says, oh, Trump never denounces white supremacists or the KKK, and he has multiple times. And this is right after Charlottesville. Let's listen to him for a second.
Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But
there
you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Yeah, and that's something I totally agree with. It's a hot opinion even at Best Buy, but I mean, it's an opinion I have where it's just like the people protesting. I support in general. I don't want to say all the support, like most of them, but I support a good number of people that are protesting because they're trying to make sure that like, hey, this stuff is happening and it's on the rise. In a lot of cases, it's not right. Like these things matter, blah, 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 blah. I support that. Like support their right to protest, support some of the things they say. But at the same time, half the people in those groups are freaking like just absolute nuts, burning things or rioters.
Oh yeah.
But at the other side, like I almost became a Proud Boy, and now they are a white nationalist kind of thing. And I love Gavin McGinnis, and he's even denounced the group.
Yeah, he's out of the group now.
Yeah, and and there's a couple other things I've totally supported on the right, but they've become so far ultra right, where they're basically ultra white with what they do, where I'm like, I can't even like agree or side with you on things, and I'm just like, it's so polarizing what's happening. But I mean, he's making a fair point. There's people on the right that are like protesting, hey, don't tear down this statue. I completely understand why people don't want like Civil War era statues up, just like everyone tore down Nazi memorabilia and things like that. I completely understand it. I personally don't think we should tear down these statues or these things from the South. I think we should set up a national park or national whatever, someone like Vanderveer Park here in Davenport, and you relocate basically all of those statues to this one area, and it's a curated thing. It's outside to where you can see that these statues were here at this time. This is who put it up. So you have the history of these things that were put there, and this is what someone believed. Yes, it was racist or it was whatever, but it very specific time in America that's influenced so much culture in this area. I think those should be preserved because I think they are parts of history. Heck, I mean, we still keep the Roman Colosseums where they freaking butchered people. I mean, thousands. I think the Roman Colosseum. Yeah, what did the Roman Colosseum? It could hold like 10,000 people, couldn't it?
Yeah.
The one in Rome, and they just literally watched Christians, Muslims, anyone that wasn't polytheist, just freaking ripped apart.
Well, that was the sideshow of the day, right?
Yeah, we kept those things. I think we should keep those.
I think those statues, a lot of these statues are great works of art that people are destroying. So whether, like you say, put them in a park someplace for people to still view them and understand history, or I've always been a proponent of taking most of these statues and putting them in a museum, where you can control the environment around them, put up a lot of extra stuff that says, okay, this is a statue of such and such, and here's the background of the statue. And
yeah, I mean, like, why don't they make they have Nazi museums where you go in there and it's a very sad, depressing point of view where you see all this like Nazi memorabilia, but then you see all the Jews and things collected from that. Like, why don't they have that where it's just a museum, like the National almost said Soviet Confederate Museum in like Houston, Texas or something, or Louisiana. You go, there's this huge museum where you go in and there's statues of Jefferson Davis, of Confederate flags, all this Confederate stuff. And then you're like, oh, this is kind of neat. And you just get towards the mid or back of the museum and they have like slave breeding tables. They have slave shackles. They have skulls of slaves. Like this is what these people did. A majority of these people, no matter what you think they fought for state rights or any of this other kind of stuff, or they just wanted decentralized government. I mean, most of these people were slavers, and this is what they did. It's real and it happened, and this should not ever happen again. Slavery in jails and prisons and now and whatever, or sex trafficking, this should not happen. So I think a museum, if we can make it in that orientation, then I think it'd be good.
Yeah. So let's go on to this guy, Joe Collins, who's running against Maxine Waters in California. He has a very clever campaign commercial. So I'll just play it.
I'm Joe Collins. I'm running for Congress against Maxine Waters. Do you know where I am right now? Maxine Waters' $6 million mansion. Do you know where I'm not right now? Maxine Waters' district. Yep, that's right. Maxine does not live in her district, but I do. I was born right here in South LA, in a place Maxine refused to live. Maxine Waters does not drink our water. She does not breathe our air. And while she sits here in her mansion, our district is in ruins. Let me show you.
Nice shoes.
So he's just a real clever guy. The ad's about 4 minutes long. You can go click on the link in the show notes.
I'm gonna watch that later.
He's got 1 million views on this campaign commercial now. But it is really good, well done commercial. Maxine Waters used to live in her district, but of course, every time you win in in the House, you get to gerrymander your district. And so she's gerrymandered herself out of the district, keeps a certain population together for her district, but her principal house, as he stood in front of it, isn't in her district anymore. And so she spends most of her time outside of her district in her little mansion, and he's showing that. Now he's a veteran, and he's running for Congress. And if you listening and you live in California and in that area, of course, Maxine Waters for me is one of those people who've been in Congress forever, just like Joe Biden, who keeps saying everything's wrong, but they've been there forever and they've had a chance to change. And if you've listened to the podcast at all, you'll know that I'm a big proponent of voting incumbents out. If you've been in 2 or 3 times, the voters should put in term limits by voting you out. So I don't care who you are. If you've been in there too long and you're getting rich on the backs of the people, you need to go.
Yep. No, I agree. Hey, turn up your volume. Your voice volume fell a lot.
Well, I was trying to turn down the video. Is it up louder now?
No.
How about now?
No.
Weird.
Yeah, whatever you did to turn down the volume, you also bumped yourself down. I can still hear you, but it's not quite as clear as it was before.
How about now?
No.
How about now?
No.
Wow, that's weird. Okay, let me stop screen sharing so I can turn it up in this thing. So is it any better now in the
No.
Zoom call? Oh, so wow.
I'll
that's
just
weird.
boost my volume all the way up.
Now you're really loud.
Yeah, I'm really loud.
Yeah, because you turned yourself up. So
I turned my volume up. I don't know how that would make me more loud for you.
well, it's because of the way I'm sending it through the sound system.
Do you want me to turn myself back down? Okay. Anyways, yeah, I don't like Maxine Waters. She's one of those people where she's got that Joe Biden dementia. That's what I'll call it, Joe Biden dementia, where it's like in February you're doing hot, you're doing great, and then a month later you're like, where am I? You have that old person kind of, you don't know where you're at. Although she's got that Joe Biden dementia all the time. So
It's just wackadoodle.
I just don't. Her and Pelosi, they're people that I don't understand why they're still there. They make so much money, and I just don't get it. I really don't. Yeah, I mean, Pelosi's been lambasted for years because she bought like a really expensive home in LA, I think.
Oh, she is.
And
her husband's wealthy, so and then she's made millions of dollars being in the house.
Yeah, and this is just like, I don't like Joni Ernst for Iowa. I'm probably going to vote Teresa Greenfield, even though she's a Democrat. I'm probably going to vote for her because Ernst has become such an incumbent figure where it's like she's a Republican, so we have to vote for her. Like that's what the local Republican Party is. Well, she's a Republican, so we're going to vote for her. I'm like, what? And she bought like a multi-million-dollar condo in DC, and she has a home in Des Moines, and it's like,
yeah, you have to live in your district.
Yeah.
So why vote for the other person if you don't really like them either? Why not?
No, I think I like Teresa Greenfield. She supports updating the minimum wage, and which again, in general, the minimum wage is a big issue for a lot of people. But let's be honest, the minimum wage hasn't been updated in almost 15 years. With inflation stuff, it's due to be updated.
That actually makes the minimum wage.
A lot of people, because so many places will give you a little bit more than the minimum wage. Here, if you work, most places will pay you $8 an hour. That's 75 cents above the minimum wage. Like, why can't the minimum wage be $9? Like in Nebraska, $9, and most places pay you 10. At least
it depend on the states to make the minimum wage.
Because they're not going to do it, and that's the problem. But
so if you want, like Illinois, raise your minimum wage to $15,
Well, not 15. I'm not saying because that wouldn't account for inflation. I'm saying like I think $9 is fine, but
So what
it's just
about,
a
I know, but I'll give you, you're talking minimum wage now and all that. I do want to go back though with, you may like the person running against another person locally. But you should always nationally, like I've always told you guys, to vote, vote your party, whatever your party is, because whenever they get, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they get up to the House or the Senate, they in general vote their party. Doesn't matter what they spout on the campaign trail. For instance, if you are not for abortion and you are more about states' rights and such, but you like the Democrat, then don't vote that Democrat in, because as soon as they get to the House or the Senate, they start voting with their party. Or if you're pro-abortion and you want the federal government to take things over and raise the minimum wage all wackadoodle, then don't vote for the Republican, because he's not gonna, even if he said all that he's for all that stuff, he's not going to vote that way. He or she is not going to vote that way when they get to Washington. Locally for city council and stuff, that's different matter. But once they get into the House or the Senate and they start meeting with the leaders of their party, the majority and the whips and all of that, they get all skewed. And um, they have to pay money to get into certain committeeships and all of that. And they've got to raise money to pay that, and they pay it into the party system. It's all skewed. So if you want to vote for the Democrat, great, but look at the Democrat platform and make sure you agree with it before you vote for somebody like that.
But
Because
here's the thing, though. She has
screw over.
I get it, dude. I get it. Listen, I mean, he listened to you for 22 years. I totally agree with you about the, voting your party. But at this point, like there is no other Republican, right? There's other Democrats.
That's why I'm saying maybe it's better not to vote at all for that position then.
No,
No vote
I
is still a vote.
Sure, but I would rather have like Teresa
Or vote
Greenfield,
for-
who is new to that getting in there, that actually lives in the state, is actually her family's invested in this state and stuff like that. And yeah, sure, if she doesn't pan out, great. I'll make a big effort to get her out or get someone else in.
Yeah. Well,
whatever. But
it's hard to get rid of the incumbents, right?
well, yeah, but it's just going to be hard to get rid of Joni Ernst. But as soon as you buy multi-million-dollar condos in another state working for the government, and then their local Republican parties in each county pay like $10,000 to host a dinner at the Iowa Machine Shed. Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm done with you.
That's the party system.
I'm sick of it.
It's right. So why vote for? I usually vote third party. So why vote for either of the two majority parties? Because you're gonna get shafted either.
But there's
way.
the third party people running are like the cringiest people.
That's true.
Hi, my name's Doug Davis, and I'm a
Now,
libertarian.
Vermin Supreme is pretty cool because he has a boot on his head. He promises everybody a pony.
Yeah, I mean he's
he's
running
on
nothing. I'm cutting up dough with a credit card. I can't help it. I got that wacky brain syndrome.
Yeah. Well, let's go. So it would be a miss this week if we didn't mention that there's an uproar over Hunter Biden right now. So
yeah, what is going on with that? I heard something about his emails got leaked and Twitter tried to ban it, and then it actually reached more people.
Yeah, here's what I know is basically at some point in time when Hunter Biden possibly was drunk or high, turned in a MacBook Pro into this shop in Delaware to get repaired. And he never came back to get it. So like this shop had like typical repair shops. If you don't come get your stuff after 6 months, it's ours. So you basically have turned it over to the shop. So this guy who does happen to be a Republican, has a signed like RMA or something from from Hunter Biden that said, "I've dropped my machine off with you," and Hunter Biden signed it. Now, on this laptop is a whole bunch of emails, many of them that say things that refer to H. A lot of the emails are in code, and they're all, no one's denied that the emails exist and that they're part of the system. So, but H refers to Hunter, and then the big guy refers to Joe Biden. And in some of the emails, it talks about there are Chinese operatives and, of course, people from the Ukraine and Burisma that are contacting Hunter to try to get an audience with Joe Biden. Some of this happened while he was vice president. None of that is in general illegal, although there's some money changing hands and things like that. But what the problem is that Joe Biden said, "I don't know. I've never had any dealings with anybody that my son has a business thing with," which is starting to become more obvious that that's a lie.
Well,
Number
maybe he
one.
doesn't realize he did because he was
Well,
also
there's
senile.
good to mention. Well, and the campaign came out and said, "Well, we don't have anything in the official schedule that says we met with these people." Like, if you were doing something that was going to be viewed nefarious, you would put it in the official schedule, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing that's on these emails is, this is going more towards the conspiracy side, although every day it gets a little closer to what's going on. So you see right here where I got my cursor, Hunter Biden email detail alleged Chinese ties confirmed by source. So there's a whole bunch of pictures of potentially Hunter Biden doing pedophile stuff. And there's already been one photo leaked of him with a crack or a meth pipe in his mouth, and a whole bunch of stuff like that, that it sounds like the Chinese government had obtained and was holding it in a way to blackmail Hunter Biden and Joe Biden somehow here to peddle influence.
Bro, everyone knows Hunter Biden is a crackhead, and it wouldn't be that
Yeah,
big of a
so-
surprise someone released it.
Right. So that there's that side. And then on the last thing in this is some of these emails talk about how we're going to pay some email between some Burisma and Hunter. We're going to pay you such and such amount of money, but big guy said we need to keep 10% for the family and 10% for him, or 20% for the family and 10% for him. So it's becoming, it looks like, not confirmed yet, but looks like there's this whole pyramid scheme with the Biden family. So we send Hunter out to make these deals. These people pay him huge amounts of money. And then we've got like a family foundation and the Joe Biden fund. And that if we pay Hunter $10,000, so much money has to go to the big guy fund for Joe Biden, and so much has to go to the family trust. And then you get to keep the rest for peddling this influence. But again,
Here's the big conspiracy, is that the big guy is actually Donald Trump and Hunter Biden actually works for the president.
I don't know. But I've got a link here in the show notes. People can go, here's all the aggregate story, and there's a ton of them. And they're not like all right-wing sources. I mean, it's starting to become more prevalent. But because Joe Biden said these aren't true, so Twitter has banned people from posting. The New York Post led with the story. So their New York Post on Twitter can't post anything else until they take this story down, and they're refusing to do it. The AIs in Facebook and other social media platforms are escalating this news story and trying to keep it tamped down. And so it's, I don't know, that, and supposedly the FBI's had this since last November, this information. And Rudy Giuliani is where this guy came to say he had this laptop. And of course, Giuliani's a little screwy now, and he's waited to do it like as an October surprise. right before the election. So I don't know entirely what to believe, but there's a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, the president's going off the deep end saying, Joe Biden's corrupt and he's a criminal and blah, 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 blah. So,
So I'd ask now, at this point, who do you think's going to win?
well, as I've been telling you for weeks, it's a toss up. The big thing to me is when you look at the rallies between Trump and Biden, I mean, it does look like this election is going to become a turnout election, which means you turn out your base and that's who's going to win. And if Biden's rallies are any indication of the excitement of his base and people actually showing up to vote for him, then I think Trump's going to win. If you believe the polls, which
here's what I say:
are
all the
polls
people that are
wackadoodle because they're oversampling Democrats. I mean, they're pulling Democrats out of like counties that have voted Republican for 50 years and saying, "Oh, this time they're going to vote Democrat," and then saying Joe Biden's up by double digits. I can't believe that.
Yeah,
So,
so out of all the people I know in town that have voted by mail so far, which is what I'm gonna end up doing too, is they've all voted Biden. There's not a single person I know that's voted by mail that's voted for Trump. I think basically everyone that's voting for Trump is going to vote in person. And I think pretty much everyone that's voting Biden is going to vote by mail.
well, and then that comes into the next thing is, how do you think your vote by mail is going to be accepted? Because I've been getting, and I've told you this because I keep shredding them. I keep getting ballots for you with my address up here in Minnesota, but with your name on it to vote in Iowa. I've moved and I've registered to vote in Minnesota, but I keep getting ballots to vote back in the Quad Cities in Iowa. So at some point you got to start questioning, are these mail-in ballots are even going to be valid?
Yeah, I think they're going to be valid enough. I don't think it shouldn't be that hard to go through. It's just like, I think voter ID should be a thing. Every ballot, at least here, has like a barcode on it. So, I mean, seriously, you just
nothing. You're dropping it in a mailbox.
Whatever. But I mean, the idea is that all the ballots get collected. They don't get counted until a certain time. And all the ballots get sent through a machine. And all they do is just they scan the ballots. And then once all the ballots are scanned and gone through, if there's any irregularities that like, hey, this barcode is set up several times for the same name, then there's the issue. I think that's the way it's supposed to be set up. What is it going to happen or not? I don't know. I just know I guess I could vote in person, but it's going to be I don't have that. There's the problem. I don't have time because for whatever reason, they don't want to make election day a national holiday. It should be a holiday. It should be a federal holiday. So on election day, you can go vote in person. I don't know why it isn't. But like, I don't have that day off. Do you?
Well, no, but the polls are open till like 8:00 at night.
Well, I work from 9:45 a.m. to 8:15 p.m.
Yeah, but the polls open like 6:00 in the morning.
But there's the problem you're running into, though, man. I don't have the time to.
Yeah, but you can do so there's a difference between. We do need to make the distinction between absentee ballots.
Well, that's the thing. Iowa only does absentee. They don't send you a ballot in the mail. Whatever you're getting isn't real then, because they're not sending us a ballot unless you request an absentee ballot. So whatever you're getting are sample things or whatever, because they're not just sending out anything. At least in Scott County, you have to have an absentee ballot registered, and then it gets sent to you, and then you vote, and you put it back in the envelope, and you send it back to the county treasurer or whatever. I think it's the county treasurer that does it.
So you in Iowa, they call it application by mail. and it's called absentee and mail-in voting.
Yep.
So you're saying that there's no mail-in voting, but
No, absentee voting is mail-in voting. Everyone gets a letter about their registration. On that letter, you have the option to call the number, email, or send the letter back requesting an absentee ballot. But now I can also do it on Facebook. I can do it anywhere online. I don't know why this election, but I can do it anywhere online for the register to vote and have a request an absentee ballot. So it gets sent to you, an absentee one. I have my voter ID card, basically. It doesn't count as actual identification for you, but that card gives me the district, the ward, the locations, everything I need to go vote at, or the information I need to request an absentee ballot. I don't just get sent one. I have to request one. But almost I know a majority of people that I've talked to that are voting have already requested an absentee ballot and have already filled it out and sent it back in.
Sure. Yeah, I've done it numerous times when I've for work, I've been away. I'm going to be away on that day. So I've requested an absentee ballot so I don't have to worry about. So I've done that numerous times, but that's different than mail-in voting, mail-in ballots. Like here, absentee.
No, come on, man. That's taking it so far. You're not talking about mail-in voting. You're talking about a mass exodus of letters of ballots to everybody because absentee voting is mail-in voting. You mail it in.
You cannot conflate the two because that has a process. I'm telling you, in Minnesota, there's just ballots everywhere.
Then it shouldn't be that way. So it
Right.
should just be an automated mailing thing. It should be an absentee voter, but they're
So
still
they're
mail-in
just-
voting.
The ballots are just getting mailed out. Some people have, not saying in Minnesota, but several states have received 2 or 3 ballots
Well, who's to say that if you
that
know,
are
fill
sent
out
from the
3
government.
ones- Yeah, who's to say you fill out 3 and send it back and they only accept 1? Who's to say it's not going to work that way?
I don't, well, that's what I'm saying. That's where I was getting at. Do you really think a lot of these mail-in ballots are going to be valid?
I
Because-
think in the majority, I think there's a system enough with the USPS that it's going to get sorted out. It's probably going to be a Bush Al Gore situation where Al Gore should have been president in 2000. But then by a hanging Chad and several days later, Bush wins.
Well, no, the Supreme Court said,
Of Florida, the Supreme Court of Florida
well, the U.S.
decided that they would not do any more recounts because every
Because
recount
they'd
had
already
a
done
different-
like 3 of them. Number 1 and number 2, it went to the Supreme Court and it was upheld. And number 4 and 27, the New York Times and several other large media outlets went down and recounted all the ballots. And each one of them came up and said, George Bush actually won by the actual counting of the ballots.
Whatever. What I've been taught and told is that Al Gore should have been president and
Now,
back in the knots.
that's only if you don't believe in the Electoral College and you want us to go to the popular vote.
No, I'm not for the popular vote.
There
No.
you go. So, okay, well, let's, what do you
California
want?
does need to be several different states, though.
So we're getting long in the
Right.
tooth here. So, do you want to talk COVID, or what do you want to talk about?
Ooh,
We've only
COVID.
got through half of our list today that I sent. you.
Yeah, we had a good talk though. I don't know, COVID. Honestly, my mother-in-law has COVID. My sister-in-law, my brother-in-law has COVID. One of my siblings has COVID. Coworker has COVID. I mean, there's
Well,
some-
the thing is it's kind of like the flu virus now. So
yeah,
people listening to this, some of them are going to go nuts. I'm just saying that
it's the flu, guys. It's a hoax.
that's not what I'm saying. It's very contagious like the flu. So if you're around somebody with the flu, you're very likely to get it. And if you're around somebody with COVID, but the people that I know that have COVID, it's acting really weird. One person in a 5-person household will have COVID and the other three are teenagers don't have it and their spouse doesn't get it. And they've all been in basically the same house and stuff quarantining. So how does that work? So does that mean that the other 4 people didn't have it before or something. It's also very random, just like the flu. A very small percentage of people have some really extreme symptoms, but none of them have been hospitalized. They're pretty severe, but they haven't been hospitalized. And the rest of everybody, down to somebody who said, I had a sore throat for a day and coughed a little bit, and then it was done. So it's acting really strange with all of these different people that I know. And so I just don't get it. But I do
What-
know there's what's that?
I was just saying the people I've talked to, like my sibling says that they were told it was going to be more like the flu, but now that they have it, they're like, it feels more like what people describe mono. And I'm like, I've had mono, so I mean, I can understand what it feels like then. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I almost want to get it just to be able to say, oh, I had COVID and get a little patch that says I survived
Put a
COVID. But
little scarlet letter on you.
yeah, but I want to know what it feels like. I want to know like what is going on, because it's really worrying in one aspect, because I've heard stories of people dying. With the other side, I've heard people that are just like totally overblown. Like the girl child's grandmother died and she ended up contracting COVID as on her deathbed, and they said, oh, she's a COVID death, even though she didn't die of COVID. She died of a broken spine and internal bleeding.
Yeah.
So I see both
Well,
of those. But
Jeffrey Epstein died of COVID.
yeah, apparently. But at the same time, when I have family or the in-laws, I'm really worried because
Sure.
I don't want them to die of COVID. But I really can't tell how bad it is, or really how how not
You can't
deadly
tell
it is.
because everybody's reacting differently.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. And just like the flu affects a whole bunch of people differently. And some people get really sick from the flu, and some people it barely phases. So most people are off work 3 or 4 days, and then they start to feel better, and then they go back to work. Basically they're off work for a week, and then they go back to work.
Hmm.
And COVID's kind of the same. Not that people are going back to work because we have all these restrictions on quarantines and stuff, but on the backside of it, you're more contagious the day before you actually start showing symptoms than you are the last day that you don't have symptoms.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'm positive about, because that's my own experience.
What? You're positive?
Yeah, well, not that
COVID?
not COVID positive. So 2 things I wanted to talk about COVID is 6,000. So we always hear, believe in the science. Well, here's 6,000 scientists that have, and it's counting, that have signed a petition calling for the end of lockdowns because it disproportionately hurts the poor people. Something I've been saying since the beginning of this, when it happened, is you're telling people that they need to lose their jobs and stuff. And then just this last week, the World Health Organization came out and said, hey, don't use lockdowns as a way to control the virus because you're disproportionately hurting poor people. And
Yeah, the WHO in that report said that lockdowns are really not there to stop the virus so much as they are there to just kind of pause everything for like a week or two, so that the government and local municipalities and just families can regroup, rethink, and restructure everything. So at the end of that lockdown, you go into it with a plan to everything reopening, and we just kind of follow that plan. It's not there just to sit in there forever. And if we did a lockdown, you're right, it does disproportionately hurt poor people. But what needs to happen is there needs to be a moratorium on rent and mortgages. So businesses and landlords, things like that, don't have to pay rent and mortgages. So neither do tenants, or neither do other people. Yeah, you still probably need to pay your utilities and things like that. But in general, your housing should just be, it's just there, at least for a certain period of time. If we did a lockdown, even now during COVID, I still am a proponent of mortgage and rent moratoriums and things like that, where you can't charge rent and we're not going to charge you a mortgage. Everyone's fair and square for like this period of time. And it is not a suspended, it's not a we'll pay it later. It's just not happening for like 3 months or something. So in that time, people aren't worried about, well, if I need to stay home because there's something going on. It's fine, because honestly, if I had the choice and option of where I could stay home and not go out more, I probably would. I would rather not be going around work with people without masks, coughing on me and spitting on me, basically, just to make $15 an hour with no 401k.
Well, here's what the WHO said. Look what's happened to smallholder farms all over the world. Look what's happening to poverty levels. It seems that we may well have a doubling of world poverty by the next year. We may well have at least a doubling of child malnutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing that in what I've experienced is that one of the primary ways that child malnutrition in the United States, and of course child abuse, is often noticed is through the school systems. And the teachers report to the social workers talk to the kids and get that squared away. And so, and what's happening now is that kind of feedback loop isn't happening. And then on top of that, can you hear that?
Nice. Yeah, I can hear that. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Windows, for having.
Thanks, Bill Gates.
Yeah, constantly have me re-put my password in all the time. But the other side of that is that you have parents that are out of work, so they're more highly stressed. So guess what happens at home? Some parents don't know how to handle that, so they take it out on their kids. I turn notifications off, and still I get all these funny noises. How does that work?
It's not a notification if it's a warning sign that your computer's going to crash.
Well, that's not what's happening. So anyway, all that to say, this lockdown stuff has really hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue. Maybe my prediction is November 4th that
After the election.
After the election, the hysteria, not that COVID's going away, but the hysteria will be gone.
Trump's going to come out with the vaccine like 2 days before the election or something.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he's gonna drop it. He's gonna drop something that we think's the vaccine 2 days before the election, and then bam.
We'll see. Well, I did want a follow up from our last podcast where there was that threesome that was doing nasty things on an altar at the Catholic church down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans. Originally they were going to exorcise the altar and stuff, but the archdiocese actually pulled the altar out and had it burned.
Yep, probably a good thing.
Yeah, and so I just I thought, good for you, good for you what you're doing. Let's go. Well, we're about out of time, so let's do a couple positive notes here. So okay. First one, if my right click will work. There it goes. So an American poet has just won a Nobel Prize for Literature.
Yeah, go USA.
Yeah. So I can't pronounce Louise Gluck. I don't know how to pronounce this. Louise
Glock.
like the weapon. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was cool that she won this the Nobel Prize. She's 77. She's a professor at Yale University. So it's just kind of a cool thing. You can go on the show notes there and click on the link and, read a little bit more about her story. But it is a nice little, oh my goodness, I'm getting lots of 404 errors. That's not good.
It's the end of the show then, 404.
Oh. Well, that's not good. So I guess we're ending with that one. But there was a story. I'll look it up and put it in the show note. Two other positive note stories that there's a little girl who's 4 in the UK who had a bad dream about needy kids not having a Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's just put out a little thing on social media to have people come and send her toys to send to kids at Christmas time. And she's hoping to send out like 400 boxes. And I just thought that was a really cool thing.
That's nice.
And then there was a lady who remarried her husband. And it's an interesting story because he has dementia and he forgot that they were married.
Oh,
And so,
sad.
yeah, it's sad. But it was cool that they got to be remarried, and just kind of a neat thing. So
True love prevails.
that's right. True love always prevails. So, well, that's about it for today. We'll be broadcasting from 2 different states next time. Again next week. I'm the old guy.
And I'm the man-child.
So don't forget to cross the stream of consciousness with others, as we've done with you today. Until next week, don't fall up a down elevator, and
Remember, if I don't make it back, check Hunter Biden's emails to see what happened to me.
all right, we'll see you next time. God bless you, everyone.
All right. Deuces.